Your cat is in the kitchen. You call from the bedroom. One ear turns, the cat does not. This looks like indifference, but it may hide something stranger. To ignore a familiar voice, a cat first has to notice that the voice is familiar, and it may be keeping track of more than the sound. Scientists tested this by making an owner do something impossible. A cat sat alone in a familiar room. From a speaker outside the room came its owner's recorded voice, calling the cat's name 5 times. Then the voice played once more from a second speaker in a different part of the room. The owner seemed to teleport. The cats showed their strongest surprise when the same owner's voice suddenly came from the new location. So what exactly had moved inside the cat's head? Start with the simplest possibility. Maybe a cat can tell voices apart. In an earlier experiment, 20 household cats heard 3 unfamiliar people call their names, followed by their owner. 15 cats gradually responded less as the unfamiliar voices continued. But when the owner's voice arrived, their attention rebounded. The reaction was not dramatic. Most cats did not meow, walk toward the sound, or wag their tails like very small dogs. They mainly moved their ears or heads. That distinction matters. A cat that does not come when called may still know exactly who is calling. Recognition and obedience are different jobs, and cats appear to have applied for only one of them. But recognizing a voice is not the same as representing a person. A ringtone can be familiar without becoming a little human inside your phone. The harder question is whether the voice creates expectations about the invisible individual behind it. That is why the teleportation experiment is interesting. The researchers did not simply play a new sound and watch the cat look up. They changed 2 things: whose voice was playing and where it came from. The strongest reaction happened when the identity stayed the same but the location changed. The owner's voice had apparently crossed the room much faster than an owner normally can. The same pattern did not appear when the researchers used ordinary non-social sounds. It also did not appear clearly with vocalizations from familiar cats in their version of the test. The cautious interpretation is not that cats understand teleportation. It is that hearing a familiar human voice may activate an expectation about where that human currently is. When the voice breaks that expectation, the cat notices. In other words, the owner may continue to occupy a position in the cat's world even while out of sight. Location is one piece. A face would be another. In a different study, cats heard either a familiar caregiver or a stranger calling their name. Then a photograph appeared. Sometimes the face matched the voice, and sometimes it did not. Cats living in cat cafes looked longer when the familiar voice and face did not match. That suggests that at least those cats expected one familiar cue to go with the other. But the household cats did not show the same effect. That result is important precisely because it is messy. It does not justify saying that every cat hears your voice and sees your face in its imagination. It suggests something narrower. Some cats, under some kinds of experience, may link a familiar human voice with a familiar human face. The researchers propose that social experience might explain the difference between the groups. But that explanation is not settled. Then there is the version of you that does not need a face or a voice. In 2025, researchers presented 30 cats with 3 tubes at once. One held the owner's odor. One held the odor of an unfamiliar person. One was blank. The cats sniffed the unfamiliar human odor for about 4.8 seconds, compared with about 2.4 seconds for the owner's odor. The stranger required more investigation. That supports a familiar versus unfamiliar distinction. It does not prove that a cat can identify one specific person by smell alone. The authors explicitly left that question open. So smell may contribute a label like familiar, without giving us evidence for a complete olfactory portrait of you. There is a problem with asking whether a cat has a picture in its head. The cat cannot describe the picture. Researchers cannot open a thought bubble and inspect it. Instead, they create a normal event and an impossible event, then measure where the cat looks, for how long, or how surprised it appears. This is called a violation of expectation method. It can reveal that an expectation was broken. It cannot reveal every detail of the expectation, and cats make the method especially difficult. Motivation, the room, the tester, and the cat's willingness can all change the result. A 2025 object permanence study even found looking behavior opposite to the usual prediction. Several striking owner results also come from overlapping teams, while independent replications remain limited. So a longer look is evidence, not a brain scan or a confession. Now we can rebuild the answer without pretending the evidence says more than it does. A cat can distinguish a familiar human voice from unfamiliar voices. Hearing that voice may create an expectation about where the familiar human is. Some cats may connect the familiar voice with the familiar face, and a familiar human's odor is treated differently from a stranger's odor. But no single experiment has shown all of those pieces fused into one stable, human-like image of you. Science has not demonstrated a tiny portrait hanging inside the cat's mind. What the evidence suggests is something less visual and perhaps more useful, a set of predictions. This sound belongs to that familiar individual. That individual should be over there. This smell does not require the investigation that a stranger's smell does. Return to the kitchen. You call from the bedroom. One ear turns. The cat stays exactly where it is. That still does not tell you whether the cat loves the sound of your voice, but it is no longer good evidence that you are absent from its mind. Your cat may not picture you the way you picture your cat, but when your voice comes from the wrong room, or a stranger's smell appears where something familiar should be, the cat's expectations can break, and it notices. Maybe you do not live in your cat's head as a picture. Maybe you live there as a pattern the world is supposed to follow.